Hey, this is the Road Hammers. You're listening to TNCRadio.live.
Welcome, good evening. This is Keep On Talking, live with Tom Kyrk.
Hey, Tom, thank you very much, and welcome to everybody to Keep On Talking Live. The counter of knowledge is open, and it's time to do a little bit of table trucking tonight. We've got three basic rules here. Rule number one, we don't talk religion. Rule number two, we don't talk politics unless it relates directly to trucking. And rule number three, if you want to talk sports, we can do that. But remember, if you have badmouth the Houston teams or the St. Louis Cardinals, your call might get accidentally dropped. Tonight, I had a whole plan of what I wanted to do, and there were some things that came up this week in the news that kind of made me throw that plan out the window. Some of you may have heard there was a tragic accident yesterday in Pennsylvania. A driver had pulled over to take a break or for however long, I'm unsure, on a bit of a curve on I-81 up around Harrisburg, around the 64-ish mile marker there. And while he was parked on the shoulder, another truck came along and unfortunately, for unknown reasons, ended up running into the back of the truck, killing that driver. And Tom Kelly and I were talking briefly last night when some of this news had come in, and we realized that, hey, truck parking, it seems like it's something that everybody knows is a problem, as, you know, especially us drivers. And we've got a situation here where we got a driver who is killed, and this happens all too often. It's ridiculous. There are some, solutions out there. And it seems like unless drivers start talking about this more and then take the next action of moving, talking to our legislators or whoever needs to be talked to, nothing's going to change. And our first caller tonight happens to be a friend of mine, Jerry Fritz. He's been a longtime driver, trucking safety advocate, and a whole bunch of other things. Jerry, I'm so glad you could hop on tonight for a little bit.
Good evening, Tom. Nice to talk with you again.
Hey, it's a pleasure. So, Jerry, I know different ideas have been thrown out over the years about truck parking solutions. What are some of the things that you as a driver with your experience that you think could be good? It could be, a silly idea. It could be a serious idea, anything that you think, just really to kind of get this conversation going.
Tom, I retired a year ago, and I recently said I sit on that Senate advisory board for FMSEA.
Okay.
And the parking, it was mentioned. And right now, it would be one of maybe two things that might prevent me or keep myself from going back on the road again after over 50 years. That would be the parking problem. Tom, I don't know if there is a really good answer. Let's go back. Maybe sometimes if we understood where we came from, it would give us a picture of maybe what we need to do again or can't do again. Before deregulation, here we go. A majority of especially the dry van business or what we call hub and spoke operations now that work like the LTL carriers do. That's why a majority of the dry van freight move. My first 20-something years on the road, I used to run 3,000 miles a week in a day cab. Never slept in a truck. Most of your freight, even coast to coast, was done in relays. Like myself, there would be a load, let's say, start out of Dallas, Texas, for the company I was with, going to Portland, Maine. The city driver, the local pickup and delivery driver on a truckload, would pick up a load of Whirlpool washing machines right there in Dallas, Texas, on a Portland, Oregon, or Portland, Maine. Well, after I had my 8 hours rest off at the motel down the road from the terminal, they call me to work. I'd jump in the truck, take it 460 miles up the road to Memphis, Tennessee. At Memphis, Tennessee, a fresh driver that was maybe lived in Kingsport or lived in Memphis here, he got on the truck and moved it another 500 miles to Kingsport. There we kind of worked out of a terminal. But the driver either went home or to a motel. Another driver got on it, took it about 480 miles to Milton, Pennsylvania. Same thing happened again. Another driver got on it and took it on to Portland, Maine. They had it timed so we get into Portland around 5 in the morning. We call the motel. They come pick us up. We went and got our 8 hours rest. The local driver, paid by the hour, came in at 6 o'clock, went out, delivered a load, picked up a load. This is the way the process pretty much went. So you had terminal-to-terminal operations. 80, according to the Wall Street Journal, for deregulation, 87% of the regulated manufactured goods moved under Teamster contract. Now, let's just blank the word Teamster out, because most of the companies that operated like that just happened to be union, but they didn't have to be. So now we're in a situation, or if I read my numbers correctly here last year, 54,000 new sets of authority were registered in 6 months of last year. Most of these little 2, 3, 4, 5 truck operations. How are they going to go out like Road or like Yellow and many of these others, build 200 and 300 terminals nationwide now? The money isn't there. Can't happen. Also, a study done less than 3 years ago, it was a white paper study done by C.H. Robinson. Now, don't everybody say C.H. Sometimes you have to just look at some stuff. They were even surprised. Quote unquote, 90% of the truckload freight today is moved by carriers of 20 trucks or less, comma. And 50% of that 20% are carriers of 5 trucks or less. So the whole terminal-to-terminal thing isn't even possible anymore.
Exactly.
JoJo, you probably remember JoJo. He was a very good friend of mine.
Yep.
Lost him at too young of an age here recently. He'd really gotten into the parking thing, went to some meetings. You know, many drivers just quickly say there's a lot of what I call ricochet, quick draw thinking in the business today. It never goes to second, third, or fourth level. This sounds like a good idea. So we now say, well, the truck stops ought to do it. Wow. You realize what it cost just to pave an acre of land now, prepare it, and pave an acre of land, not including the costs?
A lot.
Maintenance.
And hey, Jerry, we need to go to a quick break, so let's actually hold that there. We're going to do a bit of a teaser here to find out how much it costs to pave a truck stop, and we'll be back here for more conversation right after the break. You're listening to Keep On Talking Live.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. The dark side of the long-haul trucker lifestyle. A trucker's lifestyle can be a gloomy place at times. The long days, stressful work environments, and loneliness have major effects on a driver's life. The dark side of the long-haul trucker's lifestyle is often overlooked and not addressed. As a result, many drivers suffer from mental and physical health problems. Before entering the trucking industry, long-haul truck drivers need to be aware of the good and bad that comes with this lifestyle. It's difficult to stay healthy. Being in good health is a rare thing for long-haul truck drivers. Life on the road doesn't give drivers many opportunities to live a healthy lifestyle. When you spend the majority of your trucking career on the go, your food options are limited. Although taking an exit to get McDonald's may seem like an easy solution or the easiest option, eating fast food for every meal for weeks at a time can cause serious health issues. Obesity is one of the most common health issues in truckers. If you don't watch your diet and exercise, you could end up developing a serious health problem. Say goodbye to a regular sleep schedule. The trucking industry runs 24/7, 365, so having a regular sleep schedule is rare for long-haul drivers. The loading and unloading times are often never the same. At times, a driver will deliver a load at 2 a.m. one day and 1 p.m. the next day. In addition to the inconsistent load times, drivers can make multiple deliveries a day. This creates a lot of stress on the body and leaves the driver operating on a few hours of sleep. If you're struggling with getting enough sleep and staying awake on the road, check out our blog, 5 Easy Steps to Help Truckers Stay Awake While Driving. You'll feel lonely. It's not uncommon for long-haul truck drivers to feel lonely while on the road. Drivers have very little face-to-face interactions while working on the road. While this may seem like a good thing for some drivers, it can start to develop depressive symptoms. Depression is a common side effect of trucking. To help avoid feeling depressed on the road, talk to your friends and family on the phone at least once a day. As a long-haul truck driver, you can often feel like you're missing out on your loved one's life. Communicating with them daily will help you feel less lonely. It's hard on your relationships. Long-haul trucking can strain your relationship with your significant other. Being away from your loved one for weeks at a time is never easy. In addition to being apart, many drivers struggle with balancing their work life and personal life. Relationships already take a lot of work, but long-distance relationships take even more work. When you become a long-haul truck driver, it's important to be willing to put an extra effort into your relationship. Some quick tips to having a healthy relationship as a long-haul truck driver. Communicate daily. Spend as much time together as possible when you're not working. Consider therapy. Avoid arguments. Trust each other. This blog has been brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. I'm Ron Samuels. We put it in reverse gear so you can enjoy the history of popular music and hear the soundtrack of life Wednesdays at 8 Eastern and 7 Central, right after the train station on tncradio.live.
Thanks for listening to TNC Radio.live. This is Keep On Talking Live. Tom Kyrk.
Hey, thank you once again, Tom. I really appreciate it. We're back here. We're joined with Jerry Fritz, who's going to give us a little bit more information. And we're going to be joined here in just a moment with Catwoman and Jess Graham to kind of get this counter of knowledge conversation at the driver's table going a little bit better tonight. So, Jerry, you were getting ready to tell us about how much it cost to pave a truck stop. How much are some of those numbers?
Well, it gets, from what I remember, gets into the millions of dollars. And we have to add the cost of the land, or millions. Then we have to add in the big problem also is NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Yep.
And there's another one, and I'll end it here so the others can participate. See, there's been efforts made by the bureaucrats, a sign shows up and there's 10 parking spaces open in 15 miles. The only thing is you got 15 other trucks chasing those 10 parking spaces. What we really need also is predictability. When I start my day, I pretty much got a good idea. I'm going to do 650, 700 miles. So I need to look ahead, and I'm pretty good at doing this, is look ahead, and I'll be in Boise tonight. So I'm calling at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and paying for my parking ahead of time. So I'm guaranteed a spot. Now, I'm a businessman. I got my own authority. I don't mind paying for something if it has value to me, correct?
Correct.
Now there's so many catching on to that we don't even know then. So these ideas, well, just drive until you only got an hour to go and start looking, makes no sense to me. Then you can't even be sure. So for me right now, I don't see an answer. Really,
I don't know.
Problem.
I don't know if there is a single answer. I don't know if there is an easy answer. There's been a lot of solutions and suggestions thrown out. I think one of the things that I thought of today is we've got some services like Trucker Path that offer ways to predict parking and give, drivers can report on it. So maybe an idea is for a company such as Trucker Path or another to come on in and say, hey, let's go ahead here and do a concierge type service where we'll try to help you find parking spots. Not a guarantee. It's probably going to be a pay service of some kind. And I know a lot of drivers are going to say that's an ugly word, but maybe that is a suggestion where a company that's out there that can help drivers maybe find the less obvious ones, or maybe trucking companies or businesses that are willing to open up their truck parking to others. Things of that nature may be a solution towards this. And obviously it's not the answer or the only answer, but that's an idea. So Jess and Catwoman, thank you for joining me tonight. Jess, let's start with you. What do you think of that as a solution? Do you have some solutions for your own? Because I know you've been looking at this truck parking issue yourself for a while as part of Real Women in Trucking.
Yeah, I want to circle real quick to something that was mentioned just a minute ago about the sign goes up in the not my neighborhood, and that is our own fault that we even let that happen. If you ever attended a truck parking meeting, and now that they're all virtual, they're even easier to attend. You can see that we're not represented there, and so it's up to us to actually make that effort into attending a meeting in your city, your state. Start local, start where you live, and if every driver did that, we'd actually be able to inform, because until the general public understands that it is the issue that it is, we're not going to get participation or even help from them to remedy it. And we can't just expect that it's going to be fixed by trucking. We have to include everybody that's involved in supply chain, including the consumer.
And I think that's true. Tom Kelly, maybe you can correct me if I'm remembering wrong. Last year, we had a representative from the Minnesota Trucking Association on talking about how they were trying to, and I think they did pass it, up in the Minneapolis area, restrict truck parking in the city unless it was being an active delivery or under very special circumstances. And the thing that I remember the representative from there saying is they had very, very few drivers show up at the meetings to represent the driver's point of view. So, Jess, I mean, what you speak to speaks volumes. If we want to see changes, we've got to start getting involved. And obviously conversations like we're having tonight are a start. But yeah, the conversation with drivers is great. You got to take it to the next level, whether it's writing letters, attending meetings, et cetera. Catwoman, I'm going to give you a chance to jump in here for a second. Do you have any thoughts or comments?
Yes, I do. Well, we've kind of been on both ends of that with day cab and team driving. Between the both of them, most of the problems are the same. It's just trying to handle it is a little bit different. Like I think your previous guest had said, obviously plan ahead, and that's what I did quite a bit. There was times that I knew there's certain areas we go to, and just to switch out drivers, sometimes we would actually have to purchase a spot because the parking places were so packed. You couldn't even do that. And most of the times, as company drivers, I'd make sure that our company reimbursed us for any of that stuff. When a lot of companies were not doing it, and that's what a lot of drivers have to also do too, is go to their companies to see if there is reimbursement on that. A lot of drivers won't even ask if they have something like that, for their safely to take a break or switch out drivers, get your showers and all those things, try to plan it all at once.
Do you think that could be that could be a recruiting tool, telling people when you're trying to recruit drivers that they pay for parking? Because I mean, that is a serious, no one wants to come out of pocket for that, especially if you're a company driver. In some of these bigger fleets that are recruiting at such frenetic paces, they're not getting the paychecks that an experienced driver is getting. So that paying for parking is huge. It's a difference between, are you going to eat that day? Are you going to take a shower that day? Or are you going to pay for parking so that you don't get ticketed or towed and then lose a week's worth of pay?
And that was the exact logic. I told them the same thing. Would you rather us try to park in the switch and take our break on the ramp, risk getting towed away, tickets, who knows what, the customer's upset, we're upset, you're upset, versus paying out maybe up to, I don't even know what they are now. Back then they were like $15, for the parking space. And our company that we had worked with was happy to do that. So, I think that would be a really big recruiting issue to put on there. That's that.
I'm looking here for a second.
Sure, Jerry, jump on in.
Sure. In regards to that employer paying for this, there was a guest on Sirius Radio one day, and he's from Europe. And in Europe, in certain areas, I guess, trucks don't run after 10 o'clock at night until sometime in the morning. All trucks are off the highway. So they had kind of a parking problem also. Well, when outside capital came in, for profit prizes came in, all of a sudden, parking become more and more available. But it's not even a question in Europe that the employer pays for the parking directly. The employer further even arranges for the parking for the employee. Yeah, just a little bit relative to this. My wife, senior executive for a worldwide company, one of her projects was to make sure that executives flying all over the world had their meeting rooms set up and their restaurant and all that kind of stuff, and their lodging months ahead of time. He was arranging with hotels, motels all over the world, make sure this is all set up. So when you think about it, I guarantee when executive people travel for these trucking companies, I did it for about a year, and I didn't think twice. Called in and put it on my credit card. The company reimbursed my credit card. Why is it only the drivers? Let's move this to another word. Why is lodging only a problem for the driver, and it's the drivers that actually generate the revenue?
And that, I think, is the $1 million question, because the thing is, my understanding is for a company, these expenses are tax deductible or write-offs in some way as business expenses. But I think there is a philosophy with certain for-profit companies that, hey, anything we can make the driver pay for, that's bonus. And, it's not fair. It's not right. If I'm a company driver, and this kind of gets back to the suggestion that I gave a few minutes ago of there needs to be somebody out there helping drivers find parking. Well, maybe the solution is for some of these larger fleets, they have a person or persons that's their job, helping drivers, if they so choose or need it, to find parking, in an area, whether it's maybe information on their dispatch board or information that's in it. However it's available to the driver, it's available, or it's some form of an outside service. Is it going to solve everything? No, but it may help some, particularly if you see these different lots popping up around the country where drivers are leasing a spot so they have a home time as owner-operators, a parking spot. Maybe there's a way to trade spots, swap spots with people around the country. I don't know. Jess, let's kick that over to you.
And the technology is there. I'm sure there is. Airbnb is just as, it's the same concept. I think that it would help fleets that have drop yards be able to even monetize their private parking lots in such a way that actually utilizes, if I had to pay $10 to go park at a U.S. Express yard, or whatever, yard I came across, it opens, I'm sure it's going to open up quite a bit of spots. I just get a reservation number, I pull up to their guard check and let them know, and they direct me to where to go. It's one of those everybody wins, because they're not using all the spots. It's kind of like a hotel room. It's empty that night. They're not going to make money off of it.
Exactly. And, we're coming up on a good spot here, I think, to take another quick break. Got to pay those bills, so to speak. We'll be back with more right here on Keep On Talking Live after this. Stay tuned.
So where do feelings come from? Most people think feelings come from their situations, what's happening in their lives, or they think they come from other people. And they say things like, you make me love you, or you piss me off. They hand all the responsibility to other people. But I have news for you. It's not situations. It's not other people. It's not circumstances. Feelings come from the way I perceive the world, from the way you perceive the world. Our perceptions of the world create emotion. Let me give you my very favorite example. A 65-year-old gentleman walks into my office on a Tuesday morning. And I say to him, how's it going? And he says, oh, not good, Doc, not good. And I say, well, what's going on? And he says, my daughter, she didn't call me, no card, nothing for Father's Day. How is he feeling? He's feeling hurt. He's feeling rejected. He's feeling unimportant. He's feeling unappreciated. He's wounded and he's angry and he's resentful. His perception is, with all the things I have done for my daughter over the years to support her and promote her, pay for her college, she skunks me for Father's Day. I looked him in the eyes and I said, Brian, Father's Day's next Sunday. Within a second, Brian laughed. He was amused. He was embarrassed. He was hopeful. All of his emotions changed in a split second. How did that happen? Not because the facts changed. The facts were Father's Day was on the calendar for the next weekend the entire time. The one thing that changed was his perception of the facts. He went from thinking, she doesn't care, I'm unimportant, I don't matter to her, to, oops, Father's Day is next weekend. She hasn't thought any of those things. Changing your thinking, changing your perception, changes your feelings. In the next Mental Health Minute, we're going to talk about some things that also create and contribute to our emotions.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel particulate filter regeneration.
The DPF catches particulates left over from combustion. The DPF regeneration cycle cleans the filter with temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. A computer sensor triggers the DPF regen, which is often accompanied by a loss of power and fuel economy. The frequency of DPF regens are in correlation to the cleanliness of the fuel burn. Under heavy operation with the dirty burn, DPF regens can occur multiple times per day. Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme Fuel Additive promotes a more complete combustion, creating fewer emissions and therefore fewer DPF regens. Vehicles using Diesel Extreme experience 83% less DPF regens.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, Fine Farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hey, and welcome back, TNC Radio.live. This is Keep On Talking Live with your host, Tom Kyrk.
Hey, Tom, thank you so much. And we're talking tonight truck parking in light of that serious accident that happened yesterday in the Harrisburg area where a driver lost his life because a driver was taking a break along the shoulder along the side of the road, and his truck, for whatever reason, ended up rear-ending him. And Tom, you made a point here just a minute ago, just before we came back. I'd like you to bring that up real quick, because as a non-driver, I think people need to hear your observation that you've made.
Well, it just, to me, it seems so sad and completely unnecessary that two families have been ruined in the since yesterday morning. Obviously, the guy who lost his life, his family's devastated and dealing with the grief that goes with that. But the other guy, he's in big trouble. He was parked illegally in the bend of a road, and we can sit here and try to figure out why did he make that mistake, but it doesn't really matter. On top of any legal issues, he has to carry the burden, and his family has to carry the burden for the rest of his life, that he will be held responsible for another person's death. I mean, it's just so. Why are we here? I mean, it just isn't. This just doesn't make any sense that we should have this kind of problem in 2022.
It really doesn't. And when we're looking at an area like that Harrisburg area, if starting somewhere around that 30, 40 mile marker all the way up to the 100, they're putting a new warehousing complex, even going a ways up 78 towards the Frystown area for drivers who are familiar with that. They're putting in these new warehouse complexes. They're not adding truck stops. They're not, I shouldn't say that. They've added a little bit of parking at the couple of the rest areas there on 81 north and southbound, right up around the Harrisburg, Linglestown area. So that's great. They've added a few more spots. But in the grand scheme of things, they haven't added enough spots. We've got all these warehouses that have extra space. Why are they not putting in some kind of parking in these complexes for drivers? Catwoman, I know you have some thoughts on this, so I'm going to let you jump in here.
Okay, Tom. Well, I'm a stickler for planning ahead. So as soon as I knew we would have a load, wherever it was winding up to, I would make sure that we had our spaces or whatever was needed, including all the way up to the delivery or the pickup. And if it was at a warehouse, I would actually contact the warehouse well ahead of time and tell them that we are making a pickup in a day and a time or a delivery. And I would ask them if we could park there. And even if it's coming in overnight. And you would be really surprised that, with the driver asking and calling the right people into the building, sometimes you have to go past the security guard. They would let you do that. And I did propose that to the company we worked for before. And some other drivers were picking that up and doing the same thing. We went a lot to Laredo and the border towns and, other places like that. And even myself, when we went step deck, that was the same thing. I would call ahead to the companies and ask about that. And I don't understand why they could not, the Department of Transportation could not set up that if a driver had a certified, an actual appointment or for pickup or delivery, to make arrangements at those warehouses for them to have some place to stay if they get there well ahead of time for that. I mean, it's not going to hurt anyone on either way. They're going to want the truck there. They're going to make sure the driver's there on time, which is an incentive. The driver's not going to have to worry about, I have to get up 4 hours earlier to drive in the city, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to have a place that's secure and I'm going to be there ready to go. Which, I always looked at as an incentive, and, so did our driver manager. So that's kind of what we kind of stuck to if we could. But you'd be surprised, a lot of drivers won't ask. I'm not saying it's the drivers, it's just that, they need to put themselves as a quality person. So they are also a commodity to the company, because without them, they're not going to be getting anything done. So they're the asset to the companies. And, I think the company should actually make that extra step to these places when they make these appointments for delivery or pickup, and actually ask those questions for the drivers. They get a lot of regular customers. They come, repeat customers back and forth, to make arrangements for the drivers to be there all ahead of time. Like I said, it's a safe place. The driver's not worried about it. The shipper and receiver's not worried about it. And it's
private property. You'll have a lot of these companies that do the predatory towing. And that's an issue that, especially around Atlanta with the shortage of parking, you can literally go in for 1 minute to a store and come out and your truck is booted or towed. So it's that attitude from the community is really the attitude that you have to fight in order to make us welcome in the communities.
And you were going to say something too
Can I
there?
add something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jerry. I agree with everything that lady said. The other lady just ahead of me. The problem with the parking at shippers, consignees, and I was kind of a master at that. Did that all the time. But the reason that many of them really don't want to do that is the liability problem. If you get out of your truck at the middle of the night, stepped in a hole, broke your ankle, something like that, even personal emergencies, the next thing you know, in our litigious society, somebody's going to want to sue the owner of that property. So until they figure out a way of the carrier, let's say the dispatcher, that should be his job in a company, to work ahead to see if his driver that night can be on the property for pickup or delivery in the morning. And in the meantime, a quick little email, fax, or something that would absolve the owner of the property of all liabilities regarding their employee or equipment. That's what a lot of it is the liability. What happens if that person gets injured? And when you look at some of these worker comp settlements where people are seriously injured, it gets into the millions of dollars. And as I say that, I want to follow up something Tom Kelly said earlier. Many drivers don't know this. That driver up in Pennsylvania who parked his truck on the shoulder, do you know if he's found negligent, he did something illegally, he'll end up with maybe 4, 5, or 6 years in prison for vehicular homicide.
Yeah, I thought about
he
that. He
aggravated a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it isn't just the cost and the personal agony and everything. And as a professional, by the way, this liability of breaking laws and compliance, somebody gets killed, yeah, they can come along and say, well, you know, that's vehicular homicide. Not only that, but let's say, I'll throw this out too, just to expand on it a little bit. Let's say you agree to take an overloaded truck today, an overloaded load. You go down a highway and somebody runs under the back of you. The accident technically isn't your fault, but you were breaking the law. There's a term for it. Contributory negligence. If you contributed to even the other person's negligence, you could be held responsible. And even in a case, let's say you can't scale 45,000 pounds, but you didn't scale it. So I didn't scale that, I didn't know. Because you're a professional, they can hold you responsible for what you should have known. So then maybe you get away with vehicular homicide. But these cases go on for years, and it's not widely published, but I'll bet you there's dozens and dozens or more of drivers in this country every year that end up in prison because they were doing something illegal during the course of their activities.
And Jerry, that's a really good point. We need to take a break here. We'll be more with Keep On Talking Live right after this. Stay tuned.
5 common health hazards truck drivers face. A healthy lifestyle is often overlooked by most truckers. Due to work conditions in the trucking industry, it's difficult for truckers to live a healthy lifestyle. Living on the road makes it hard for truckers to prioritize their health. Truck drivers have limited access to healthy food, lack of sleep, and exercise. Due to their work and living conditions, truck drivers statistically have more health problems. It's important for truck drivers to be aware of the common health hazards they face. To live a long, healthy life, truckers will have to focus on their health and make a conscious effort to be healthy. Sleep apnea. Sleep is crucial for truck drivers. Lack of sleep can make driving dangerous. A study shows that long-haul truck drivers obtain less sleep than the required amount for alertness on the job. Truckers need a good night's sleep to be fully alert and ready to take on the road the next morning. Getting a good night's sleep is crucial for keeping a truck driver alert and productive. Truck drivers travel several hundred miles each day. To reach their destination on time, they'll have to prioritize sleep so they can be alert and ready. Obesity. When you live in a tiny truck cab and drive for 11 hours a day, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain a healthy lifestyle. As a result, obesity is a terrible problem that American truck drivers face. According to the American Dietetic Association, 86% of truck drivers are obese. Healthy food is hard to come by while driving and working on the road. Truck stops offer greasy, high-calorie food rather than healthy fruits and vegetables. It's important for truck drivers to be conscious of what they eat. There are many other health risks that come with fast food and truck stop food. High blood pressure, also known as hypertension, is a silent killer of both your health and trucking career. A poor diet, smoking, obesity, lack of exercise are causes of high blood pressure. Truckers need to be aware of the causes of high blood pressure and take necessary steps to avoid them. Not only does high blood pressure put your life at risk, it can also disqualify you from driving. Truckers with stage 3 hypertension, that's 180 over 110, are automatically disqualified. Depression. Truck drivers spend a significant amount of time away from home and their loved ones. They also work alone for 11 hours a day. It's not uncommon for truckers to start to develop symptoms of depression. Truck driving's not an easy job. It comes with a lot of stress and anxiety. Depression not only affects a person mentally, it also affects you physically. Depression affects your energy levels and the amount of sleep you get. It can also cause a change in appetite, headaches, and muscle aches. It's important for truck drivers to consider their mental health as well as their physical health. This blog on tncradio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Don't forget, you can hear all of our TNC Radio primetime shows again on our podcasts. Just go to tncradio.live/podcasts or search for tncradio.live wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back in tncradio.live. This is Keep On Talking Live with your host, Tom Kyrk.
Hey, thank you so much, Tom Kelly. And we're back here at the driver's table. The counter of knowledge and some table trucking is in full swing tonight. We're joined now by Idella Hansen. Catwoman has stepped off for a little bit. She had a few things to attend to. Jess Graham and Jerry Fritz is still with us. Idella, I know you've been listening to us here for a little bit. What are some of your thoughts on this, on everything we've been talking about tonight, whether it's maybe a concierge service or maybe the shippers being more proactive in providing parking or various other things? What are some of your thoughts?
Well, in some of these areas, the pre-existing shippers, there just isn't any parking. I mean, I've looked at their lots and stuff like that, but just mentioned the MPOs. We, the Parking Coalition, has worked with several of the MPOs to make sure that their new businesses coming in have a staging area or a parking area planned with their deal, and we feel like it should be mandatory that they have some sort of staging area. You know, when you build a regular grocery store, you have to have so many parking spots before you can open the doors and do the same thing. That being said, there is money from the U.S. government in those MPO plans if they want to include parking in their planning. I'm seeing a lot of these Amazon centers going up, for instance, right down there at Paulsboro, West Effort. And there just isn't any parking. As I watched that place go into business, I saw them parking out in the grass, in the mud, and in that particular area, there hasn't been sufficient parking in that area for 50 years, much less now. So the communities want to grow and put in these Amazon centers and stuff, but they're not considering what the traffic is doing to their communities and their staging, and it concerns me. Now, the concierge service, I'm not sure of. Again, a driver has to be proactive, but there's only so many hiding places you can get and tell so many people, and then you lose them. You really got to. You have to really look out for yourself. There's no doubt about that. Plan, and pre-plan, and all of that's fine. at the end of the day, I need to know where I'm going to park.
Putting in all kinds of warehouses. And other than the rest areas, I don't think a single truck stop place has been put in 15 plus years. And Idella, you may remember that. And I drive that area quite a bit. And there isn't truck parking there. And the thing is they're putting in these big warehouses, whether it's an Amazon or a Pro-Largest Park or whatever. But a lot of these shippers and receivers at these new warehouses don't seem to want drivers there. Oh, you can get there early, but if your break isn't complete and you're done, you better get off their property. And where are you going to go? And, a lot of drivers use Harrisburg as stage for New York City. So, we've all agreed parking is a huge problem. I think some of the questions now are what some of the next steps. Does anybody have some ideas of what they think the next steps need to be?
Driver participation in humanizing us. We are humans. We deserve access to basic human rights, bathrooms, and safe parking. So I think driver participation is the number one factor on whether or not we're actually going to get what we want. Lobbyists are out there for every industry. We can be our own lobbyists because nobody's going to do it for us.
Exactly. And I mean, I've heard a few drivers make the argument that it's, if you hire a plumber, why should, once he does the job, why should you let him park in your driveway a while? And says if the plumber's tired and it means they're not taking park, they like that answer, but their whole point was, well, why should a customer let you park there? And the thing is, if no one else is putting in truck parking, and particularly if it's a large industrial park and there isn't parking allowed on the street or wherever, and it's enforced by ticketing and towing, then I hate to say it is the shippers and the receivers' responsibility to do it. That's my opinion. Jerry, let's kick it to you for a minute, and Idella will kick it over to you. What are some of your thoughts as to what the next steps are?
Well, I'm reluctant to bring in government to answer a problem. This industry is just infatuated with FMCA, SCA cures everything. Remember I was mentioning earlier on when I got to Kingsport, Tennessee, they sent me to the motel. Okay, there's a nasty little word that needs to be thought about here. There was a union involved. The company had 1 hour from the time of my arrival to get me to lodging. They had to start paying me by the hour. So that was a force. And nobody wanted, so somebody was making this happen, correct? I'm thinking, right, just sitting here now, there's any one of these people can make an argument. Maybe instead of FMCA, a couple different reasons, we may need to have to go to somebody like OSHA, Department of Labor. OSHA has a lot to do with the employee's health. Tell me something that's more critical to health. Restful sleep. The OSHA, at some point, OSHA will find out who is going to fix this problem, or it will cost them a lot of money. It all goes back to, in a way, the employer. Whose name is on that truck? Whose name is on that paycheck? He is the employer. He is responsible for his employees. And according to OSHA, the safety and the health and well-being of his employees while they're on the job. I believe this is actually it's another topic, but even in detention, that's a Department of Labor thing.
But that opens a can of worms.
Oh, yeah, it does.
That opens a can of worms because we're misclassifying workers. But yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Yep, and we don't have time because we're getting near the top of the hour to get into that can of worms. Yeah. So, Jerry, why don't you wrap it up real quick so I can give Idella a little bit more time here.
I really don't have an answer other than the fact that brings somebody big, mean, and nasty to get after the ultimate people responsible, and that's the employers. We need to go to OSHA.
And that is definitely... Hey, I don't think any driver really likes it, but I think we're at a point where we need some solutions. And I think, Jess, you made a great point, humanizing drivers to the public and taking our case to the public may be part of that too. Idella, you got a couple minutes here. I'm going to give you close to the final words before I wrap it all up.
Well, I as much as I've dealt with FMC, I say, for safety, they can, all their rules and regulations don't change the fact that it is the shippers and the receivers, customers' responsibility to see that they have adequate parking at their places. There has been many solutions come up with, but again, it's land, area, time, and money. And it's up to us, as Jess said, and Jerry, it's up to us, to drivers, to present a better face on our part, individually and as a group, as just going in and screaming, says, do you think you could, when you see a problem over there, there's about 6 places over there in the corner. If we clean that up, we should let the trucks park there. You got to go in with your own solutions, individually and as a group. And again, I resent most wholeheartedly the fact being told, oh, there's no restroom here for you. And is that a thing of the past? No, sir, it's not a thing of the past. It happened to me the last week before I came off the road. Oh, no. Well. Oh, no. No restroom for you. Just for us. You. Yeah. And
I'm going to say this, Idella. Oh, yeah, and those are great points. I'm going to say this real quick before we have to wrap up. I think since the pandemic, drivers in many ways, through lack of services, whether it's bathrooms or other things, it has gotten worse rather than better. And yes, as the pandemic is easing up, few places have gotten a little better, but a few places, like you said, are still shut down to drivers. And it is a real problem. And I think drivers are feeling dehumanized, or feeling dehumanized, or feeling dehumanized, or feeling dehumanized, or